This is not a rumour. This is not a leak. This is not political theatre. Just moments ago, King Charles made a decision no British monarch was ever supposed to make. Parliament is being forced into an election. The government has fallen. And inside Westminster, Keir Starmer and the political class are in absolute shock. What you are about to hear marks a turning point in British history, one that could permanently change the balance between monarchy, democracy and power in the United Kingdom. It happened faster than anyone expected. After weeks of mounting pressure, protests filling the streets, markets trembling and legitimacy collapsing by the hour, King Charles finally broke his silence. In a move described by senior officials as extraordinary and unavoidable, the King has exercised his constitutional authority to force a general election. Parliament is dissolved. The current government is finished and Britain has entered uncharted territory. Inside Downing Street, the atmosphere is described as stunned disbelief. Advisers who, just days ago, were insisting the government could hold on are now packing boxes. Ministers are cancelling appearances. Emergency meetings are underway to manage the fallout. One senior civil servant admitted, "We knew this was coming. We just didn't believe the King would actually do it. But he did. The trigger was simple and devastating. The government had lost the country. Approval ratings were stuck near historic lows. Poll after poll showed overwhelming public belief that the government no longer had the right to govern. The petition demanding elections continued to surge, breaking records not just in Britain, but globally. Protests outside Parliament intensified. Then came the moment that changed everything. The refusal to commit to elections, even after a looming no-confidence defeat. That refusal placed the monarchy in an impossible position, allow a deeply unpopular government to cling to power, risking nationwide unrest and economic collapse, or intervene and be accused of shattering centuries of royal neutrality. According to palace sources, the final decision came after urgent overnight consultations with constitutional experts and former prime ministers. The conclusion was stark. Inaction was no longer neutral. Silence itself had become a political act. Early this morning, King Charles signed the order. Within minutes, senior figures across Westminster were notified. By midday, the announcement was prepared, and when it came, it landed like an earthquake. Britain will go to the polls. The current government will not continue. The deadlock is over. For Keir Starmer, the moment was reportedly surreal. Allies say he did not expect the King to step in so decisively. While his party stands to benefit electorally, the implications go far beyond party politics. This is the first time in the modern era that a monarch's intervention has directly ended a government under this level of public pressure. Supporters call it an act of democratic rescue. Critics are calling it a constitutional grenade. Across the country, reactions are explosive. Crowds outside Parliament erupted when the news broke. Some cheered, some cried. Others stood in silence, fully aware they were witnessing history. Social media platforms are flooded with one phrase: "This changes everything." Markets, which had been sliding for weeks, briefly surged on the announcement before stabilising. Investors see clarity, but also risk. Inside Buckingham Palace, there is no celebration. Officials describe the mood as heavy, sober, and deeply aware of the consequences. King Charles knows this decision will define his reign. He will be praised as the monarch who defended democracy by some and condemned as the king who crossed the line by others. There is no middle ground. What happens next will unfold at breathtaking speed. An election campaign unlike any in modern British history. A public more mobilised, more digital and more distrustful than ever before. And a monarchy now permanently changed by the moment it stepped out of the shadows. This is no longer just about who wins the next election. It's about whether Britain's institutions can survive a crisis of legitimacy in the digital age. One decision, one signature, and a country now racing toward a future no one fully controls. The fallout from the King's decision is spreading faster than anyone anticipated, and the political aftershocks are only beginning. Within hours of the announcement, Westminster descended into chaos. Emergency sessions were called and then abruptly cancelled. Senior MPs who had spent years navigating backroom deals now found themselves powerless, watching events outrun them. The government, already fragile, collapsed almost instantly. Cabinet unity evaporated. Resignations followed in quick succession, not because of principle, but because the reality was unavoidable. The authority that once held everything together was gone. What makes this moment so dangerous is not just the fall of a government, but the precedent it sets. For decades, the monarchy has survived by standing above politics, invisible yet symbolic. That line has now been crossed, and it cannot be uncrossed. Supporters argue the king acted as a constitutional safeguard, stepping in when democracy itself was at risk. They point to the overwhelming public demand for elections, the looming no-confidence vote, and the threat of nationwide strikes, a proof that the system had reached breaking point. In their view, this was not royal interference, but democratic intervention of last resort. Critics, however, see something far darker. They warn that once a monarch forces political outcomes, even in extreme circumstances, the balance of power is permanently altered. If a king can dissolve parliament under public pressure today, what stops future interventions tomorrow? Legal scholars are already debating whether this moment will lead to tighter limits on royal authority or ignite calls for written constitutional reform. Some go further, suggesting this decision may accelerate Republican sentiment, especially among younger voters who already question the monarchy's relevance. Meanwhile, Keir Starmer and opposition leaders are being pulled into a storm they did not fully anticipate. While the path to an election benefits them on paper, the manner in which it was triggered places them under intense scrutiny. Starmer now faces a delicate challenge: capitalise on public anger without appearing to endorse royal intervention. Too much praise for the king risks alienating voters wary of monarchy. Too much criticism risks appearing ungrateful for the very act that opened the door to power. Allies say his team is scrambling to recalibrate messaging in real time. Across the country, the mood is tense, but energised. Protests have not stopped, but they have changed. The chants are no longer just against the government. They are about accountability, about trust, about whether Britain can rebuild faith in its institutions. For some, this decision feels like relief, a release after weeks of uncertainty. For others, it feels like the beginning of something unstable, a reminder that the system only functions until it doesn't. Internationally, Britain's allies are watching closely. Foreign leaders have offered cautious statements, carefully worded to avoid appearing critical of the monarchy, while signalling concern about stability. Diplomats privately admit this moment will be studied for decades. Markets remain volatile, responding not to party politics but to institutional risk. Investors want certainty, and right now Britain is offering anything but. Inside Buckingham Palace, preparations continue for what comes next. Advisors know the king may have to speak again, possibly sooner than expected. His words will be dissected line by line, not just in Britain, but around the world. Every sentence must balance authority with humility, decisiveness with restraint. One misstep could deepen divisions rather than heal them. As the election clock starts ticking, one truth is undeniable. Britain has crossed a line in its history. The old assumptions no longer apply. A government has fallen, a king has acted, and a nation now stands at a crossroads, unsure whether this moment will be remembered as the rescue of democracy or the beginning of a far more uncertain chapter.